Today at Manchester Theatres, I am with the fabulously multi-talented Brook Tate, who is a painter, a writer, a songwriter, musician, and musical theatre maker, whose show Birthmarked is coming to the Lowry from the 29th of May. Now, Brook has written the show, he's composed the songs for it, they have, you're performing in it as well, and also I've done a little bit of Googling, and every time you do, you find nothing but praise for it. I mean, it's been praised at the Edinburgh Fringe, at Bristol Old Vic, at Brighton Festival. And yeah, so thank you so much for bringing the show to the Lowry. We very much appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Not at all. I'm very excited to come. We're all really excited to come perform in Manchester. So thanks for having us in Manchester. It'll be
Thank
fun.
you. So tell us a little bit about the concept of this, because it's been described as a musical theatre concert gig kind of thing, and then what the show is about.
Yeah. So as we describe it, a little bit of tongue in cheek as a joke, but it's a semi-improvised autobiographical piece of musical gig theatre. That's the genre. Um, but basically, it started. I've got a bunch of friends, and we've had a band for about 6 years, and so we would playing gigs and out and about, and then in 2021. I was planning to record an album. I was like, okay, we're going to record these songs as an album. But because and the songs that I was deciding to put all together, there was about 11 songs. They were all around a certain theme and a story, a part of my life that was quite complicated. And I was like, I want to put this out into the world, but I don't know how to best to do it so that the story comes across as best I can. And then we had a gig in a festival, and I just said to my band, I was like, guys, I'm going to improvise this as a musical because I love musicals. And I was like, I'm just going to improvise telling a story as as a musical. And they were like, what the hell do you mean? And I was like, don't worry, you just play the songs and I'll just improvise it. And then that gig that day, we had no preparation. It just ignited as a story. And then from there, it's just evolved and evolved and evolved and become this big theatre show. And the story that it's based on is my experience growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. And my family have been Jehovah's Witnesses for years. And then what happened to me when I was, so in 2016, when I was excommunicated or disfellowshipped, as they call in the religion, for being, I'm a gay man. And I also I just came to a point where I was really questioning this whole system that I was in, this story that I had been born into. And I started finding holes in it. And I started understanding that it wasn't what I was told it was. And once I started expressing that and saying that and trying to leave, the systems in place within the religion excommunicated me. So it's basically it's an expose of what goes on within the religion that lots of people know of, but they don't know about Jehovah's Witnesses.
And I have to say, from what I've seen, from the trailers and things like that, and other interviews and things, that you have somehow, and I don't know how, because that just sounds brutal, but you have somehow found a way through this with dignity, with class, and with a hope and a humor as well, that you have shared with so many people, that even if that story is different for them and they feel on the outside or discommunicated or whatever, that you have really given them hope. I mean, that is quite a skill to put that forward, but in a really fun way. So how have you managed to find humor through this?
I think like lots of performers or lots of humans, we find humor as a coping mechanism. And I know that I've loved stupidity and comedy and in my family, it was a lot of sarcasm and joking and pranks and jokes and stuff like this. So I think that was just part of my personality, was being silly and finding the fun in it. And it wasn't like I never sat down, even like with most of my projects, I didn't sit down and go, what am I going to do today? What am I going to make? it's always like a thing that's just happening in my life, and I will build on it. And because I like to paint, I like to write stories and poems and songs. Naturally, that is how I craft anything I make. So this situation came along, and it was like I was trying to just process it and live it and experience it, and my art naturally started evolving around it. But the comedy part of it, I think I'm not the sort of I like to be. I'm a naturally optimistic person, and I love connecting with new people and finding connections and opportunities and projects. With this situation, standing on stage in front of an audience, telling this story, the first time I told it, there was some really hard parts, and I was like, gosh, I can't believe I'm telling this, because for different reasons. It's not something that's just happened in the past. It's a story that's current. It's always still my life, and it's still affecting my other family members, because some of them are in the religion, some of them are out, and me talking about it affects their relationships. So I was aware that I wasn't just telling a story, I was living on stage. And to approach that cold and just fact based, I wouldn't have the energy to do that.
Yeah.
Comedy and light and the hope and the positivity, which I do believe in. It's not like I'm pretending or being unrealistic. I believe that there's a future for everyone that's been through this situation. That was what drove me to keep doing it. And I've been amazed. I was surprising myself what was happening. And my bandmates are such a part of the story, whether that's just musically or the whale. There's a character, Gail the whale, which sounds like a kid's show, but anyway, she's a whale in the show, and it's a conversation between me and a whale, and it's my drummer has a little head mic on, and she is the voice of this whale, and she's kind of turned into this iconic like comedy queen. She is so dry and so funny, but so sensitive, and we never rehearsed it. We just did it, and we were like, wow, our friendship in real life is now on stage in this story, and it helps drive the story forward. So there's many elements that make it a positive experience for the audience and for myself.
Yeah, it's real, isn't it? That's the thing. It's authentic. It's real. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And this whole thing is being directed by Olivier award-winning Sally Cookson. How did that come about? How did you meet?
Well, we had met probably in 2018, so quite a few years, about 3 years before the project, before Birthmarked. We had met at the Bristol Old Vic doing a workshop, and I had spoken to her about a project that I was running, like a scheme that took advantage of leftover tickets in theatres. So if there was an empty seat, or if there are empty seats at the Old Vic, I would go to the refugee centre that I was volunteering at, and I would promote a show and say, who wants to come with me? Like, we can go along for free. So we would go along, and it was amazing. For like 2 years, me and a friend were like organising these trips to the theatre, and me and Sally Cookson met through that. And I had a very brief conversation about that. And at the time, I was writing another musical theatre kids show called Mr. McGlump, and I emailed her about it and didn't know whether she was going to come. And she turned up with Andrew Lloyd Webber, and I was like, "What the hell? How has this happened? This is crazy." And then didn't really, and then we sort of went separate ways again. And then I just kept on. Now and then I'd update her on what I was doing. We didn't have loads of work. We never really worked together loads. And then out of the blue, she invited me to work on a project at the National Theatre with her just before COVID, a week before COVID. And in that week, I mentioned something about my situation as a Jehovah's Witness. And then she was like, wow, that sounds fascinating. And then COVID happened, and it all split. And then did Birthmarked for the first time in Bristol was like a real rough and ready. We did it in a theatre tent outside, so it was because of COVID, it was an outside theatre, and it was raining one night, and there was rain on the theatre, and it was dripping into the stage around. So it was completely ramshackle, and the technician had forgotten to put the house lights down. So throughout the whole show, the audience were lit up, so I could see everyone. It was a bit nerve-wracking. Then I was looking, and I was like, oh my gosh, Sally Cookson is there. I was like, oh gosh, Sally Cookson's watching this. It's a complete like
It's
shambles, but it's
raining.
weird to go. I was like, it was rain. It was just bonkers. But she came up to me at the end. She goes, Brooke, I've got to run home. But she goes, we're going to take this around the world. And she just like took
Oh,
my hand. I was like,
wow.
and then a week later, she was like part of the team. She had spoken to the National. We got support from the National to develop it. We had the Bristol Old Vic giving us the main stage. It was like she has been an incredible. I've never worked with a director really. She has managing to deal with someone like me who's so like la la la. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to turn into a tap dancing zebra. La 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 la. And also dealing with the fact that it's a true story and it's impacting my life, my parents' life, my family's life. My band have never worked in theatre before. She has been incredible at managing the whole project and holding it so sensitively and making it what it is. So yeah, it's sinking in now how lucky we are to have had her work on it, because it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, well, it's well deserved. It's very well deserved. And you took like you say, she's worked with you, and the way that this has all come together is through basically going in and workshopping moments of your life, really, hasn't it? To bring it together. I mean, and like you say, it must be difficult yet fun yet whoa, did I really do that? But also like, God, have I come through that? And just like mind blowing at the same time. I mean, are you exhausted?
To be honest, it has been an exhausting process. Yeah. I've been. It's changed. I never set out to, like I say at the very beginning, I just wanted to record an album. I never set out to do this, which would already have been quite like emotional to do, because it was telling these songs that were connected to my life. But I never expected to still be standing on stage in front of audiences in beautiful theatres, retelling my story, and and getting the opportunity to perform in a way that I get to perform, to literally transform on stage into a different being. It's been magical. But as a artist, whatever that means, I'm really noticing now how Birthmarked is a very unique project in that it's not like I'm in The Lion King, or I'm in Phantom of the Opera, I'm in Wicked, or something like this, which when I was a teenager was my dream. Like every time I come back to it, I'm the one telling my story, and I have to deliver not have to, but I'm the one delivering this story and this show, and it takes me emotionally back to all of these things that I've been through, and to the fact that my three siblings and my two nieces, we were so close. We were such a tight unit family. They are still in the religion, and because of the rules of the religion, they've cut me off like completely. So I have no contact with them. And I know that it's not something they want to do. It's the result of the system in place for Jehovah's Witnesses that are in the religion, that are committed to it. And my for a time, I was hoping that by doing this musical, the message would get back to them, that I was putting myself so out there on stage, like, and there's nothing, I do not badmouth anything.
No.
I do not badmouth anything. I just explain the systems in place, and I say, I don't personally feel like this is a healthy thing that should be allowed to happen in this country, in any country, let alone this country. Like, it needs to be addressed. And I love my siblings and my nieces so much that I'm the only way to contact them, because I can't email them, I can't text them, I can't send them a message on Instagram. There's no way to contact them beyond talking to them and trying to knock on their door and like have a conversation like this. I was like, well, maybe I'll stand on stage and write a musical and sing all these songs and make a beautiful show in the hopes of reconnecting with them. And so far, 3 years down the line, nothing has changed. So I have to keep facing that as well. But I know that the positives of doing this have completely, like, two of my best friends from years ago, they also grew up Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were not protected as children and as teenagers, basically a safeguarding issue. And I won't go into, like, I don't know who your audience are, but I'm not sure people can put two and two together. There are systems in place that protect perpetrators of crimes, and finding out that information was terrifying. To think, oh my gosh, I've lived in this machine, and two of my best friends, their lives were completely torn apart by this, but they didn't know how to leave the religion without losing their community, their family, all stuff like this. But when I started doing the musical in 2021, they had seen on Instagram, and then I sent the video of one of the performances to them, and they watched it, and 3 days later they said, I've stood up to my family and said I can't do this. And now she's left. She left a few years ago, and then her younger sister has also decided to leave with two young girls. And it's just like, their lives have changed now. They've managed to get out. And one of them was like, I just kept seeing a vision of a zebra in my head and thought, I can't go along with this anymore. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, telling this story has, and that's just like one example of how sharing your story and being authentic can inspire other people to make life-changing decisions and actions. So I am, if I only ever got to like do Birthmarked for one more time or never again, the impact of what it's done, it's like one of the most special things that I couldn't be paid a certain amount of money to make me feel as special as that have felt, to know that telling my story has helped them make that decision. It's incredible. So it is, but even that is exhausting, because it's like, oh, I must keep telling the story because it might help some other people. But it's like, it's a balance to try and strike. It is exhausting. So that was a very long answer.
No, but do you know what? I think it's the most honest and raw answer that anyone has ever given me. And thank you. I've been learning a little bit about what vulnerability and it means to be vulnerable at the moment. And you are a living example of what that is and how that can make connections with people that you don't even know and completely make an impact and change their world. So on behalf of everyone, thank you, honestly, because it's a brave and bold thing to do. It really is. So thank you. I don't even know what I was supposed to be asking after that, to be honest.
You're making me, it's good. No. You're making me well up. And I that's my first time welling up on Zoom on an interview. I feel very emotional. But thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Honestly, it was.
I've never even met you. You're just a head on a screen on Zoom, but I feel very emotionally connected to you already. But I'm so grateful that you've said that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Well, I tell you what, we'll switch it up a bit and say, how do you fit Jonah and the whale and a giraffe into all of that?
Great. Yes, let's get. We're moving away from the emotional. No, joking. So Jonah and the whale and a giraffe and a zebra.
And a zebra.
So in the Bible, zebra, but there was a giraffe. There is a giraffe also, Martha the giraffe. So I don't know how well you know your Bible, but there's a book in the Bible called Jonah, and it's about a man called Jonah. And he was a prophet of God, and he was asked by God to go and preach and go and tell a nation that they were so sinful, and if they didn't change, they would be destroyed. And they were a terrifying people. And in the Bible, it says that Jonah ran away from Jehovah. So he was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need to run. I can't do what you've asked me. It's too terrifying. I'm going to run away. So he gets on a boat, and he tries to leave and move city, because he's known as a prophet of Jehovah where he lives. So he's like, I'm going to move. So he moves. But then God creates a storm, and the people on the boat chuck Jonah off the boat, and because he's the reason that there's a storm, and he's gone against God, and he drowns, and then a whale swallows him, and he lives in its belly, and then he gets vomited up on land, and he gets told to go and do what he was told to do. And when I was reading this in the Bible, when I had been excommunicated, I was like, this is very similar to being excommunicated from a religion. If you don't toe the line, if you don't do what you're told, you'll get chucked off the boat and you're just, and I was like, and then it felt like when I was excommunicated, it felt like I was drowning. It felt like I was completely lost in a world that I had no clue how to I didn't know how to trust people. I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know what I was meant to do. I had no real qualifications, and it felt like you were drowning. And then when I was making this show, I was like, oh, wow, that's my setting. That's my story. We'll be dressed as Jehovah's Witnesses and we'll get thrown off this boat and then we'll start drowning and it turns into like a picture book. And then this whale, I was like, okay, so I'm going to meet a whale. That's what happens next in the story of Jonah. So I'm going to meet a whale. And I make puppets. So I love making things. And I got a garden parasol, a giant garden parasol. And I somehow made it into a whale, and it's still the whale that we use in the show. And I was like, okay, so it's going to be a scary whale, and it's going to come along and swallow me. But as I was thinking of the story, I was like, oh no, actually, she's a beautifully lovely, curious, gay whale called Gail. And then it's like she becomes like this. She just becomes like a therapist friend, which actually reflects a lot of what my friendships became. Like I'd meet these lovely people in my life and I'd never had therapy before, and I have had properly therapy now, but like I was like, those friendships were like giant whales that just came along and just were so gentle, loving, curious, and I was saved by them. So whale, Jonah, the Birthmarked is set like we're underwater. We meet this beautiful whale called Gail, who's a bit odd. She's very funny. She's very dry humor. She's very sweet, and she becomes the drummer in our band because she is actually the drummer.
Yes.
And then when I get a bit sad, it does get quite heavy. She swallows me in the band. We go inside her belly, and the theatre becomes like her belly. We're in this whale's belly, and the stomach acid burns off our suits that we wear and we turn into like these slinky rock stars, and then the real transformation begins in the belly of the whale. And then just as Jonah was like vomited out of the whale into the land, we more classily get blown out of the blowhole as these new fabulous queer musician band people, and it's like a beginning of a new chapter. So that is how the whale fits in. I won't tell you how the zebra fits in because you'll have to come and see the show to work out.
Yes, you have to see the show. Yes. Your mind is incredible. Honestly, your mind is incredible. I absolutely love that. So honestly, thank you so much, Brooke, for your time today. It's been eye-opening, inspirational. I don't even have the words, and I am so pleased that you chose to include the Lowry as somewhere to showcase this work, because we are all going to be very, very lucky. So thanks. So I'm getting emotional. Sorry. So thank you so much. Honestly, I am going to be there, and
great.
Yeah, I'm going to come along, and I cannot wait, and I'm going to spread the word to everybody. So thank you so much. It's going to be the 29th of May. Come along and see Brooke in Birthmarked at the Lowry. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you so much. This has been one of my favourite interviews. You're great. You're great.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
What's happening? A quiet escape, so giving a bright, a symbol of hope, like a fire in the night. A wonderful friend I appear to have won. A woman of stories, a woman of notes, a woman of laughter, but most of all love. In a heart so wide it could outshine the sun. Oh, she'll hold my hand to the bitter, and when I'm with her, oh, what a beautiful sound. But like every hero, limits you know, so be careful, she'll burn. Oh, be careful, we burn to the ground. To the ground. To the ground. To the ground. A righter of wrongs, a righter of rhyme, a mover and shaker, and then time to time, a mother to others who need putting right. The promise of silence, a garden of Eden, no one with it out, and when I woman who's crowned by the white. Oh, she'll hold my hand till the bitter end when I'm with her. Oh, what a beautiful sound. But like every hero, limits, you know, so be careful, she'll burn. Oh, be careful, we burn to the ground. To the ground. To the ground. I'm with her. Oh, what a beautiful sound. But like every hero, limits, you know, so be careful, she'll burn. Oh, be careful, we burn to the ground. To the ground. To the ground. To the ground. Oh, shine. Oh, shine. Oh, shine. Oh, shine.